What's going on, noobs? I am Rory, the Perpetual Noob, and welcome to another in-depth Hollow Knight guide. Today, we'll be talking about the Pantheon of the Sage and the boss that awaits us at the end, the Jedi Master Yoda of Hollow Knight, Great Nailsage Sly. Great Nailsage Sly, also referred to as Sly, is a boss added with the Godmaster content pack and found in Godhome. The fight we'll be talking about in this guide occurs at the end of the Pantheon of the Sage, also known as the Third Pantheon or Pantheon 3. Please see my Godmaster primer to learn how to access Godhome and more. To enter the Pantheon of the Sage, we must first defeat several enemies outside of Godhome: Hive Knight, Dream Warrior Elder Hu, the Collector, Troop Master Grimm, Dream Warrior Galeon, Umu, and Hornet 2, also known as Hornet Sentinel. Great Nailsage Sly slashes twice in quick succession towards us. The first slash is an overhead downward slash, and the second is an upward overhead slash. Both slashes cover the entirety of Sly. He shifts forward a little with each slash. There is about a half second between these slashes. Sly will change directions between slashes if we end up on his other side before the first slash is over. If we are close to Sly after those two slashes, he follows up with a final special attack, again about half a second after the previous slash. Sly does a short leap into the air at a 45-degree angle towards us. During this ascension, Sly flips around with his nail out, becoming a flying circle of death. He flips like this for about 3/4 of a second. He stops flipping as he returns to the ground. Great Nailsage Sly telegraphs this attack when he lowers himself to the ground for a moment. Then he lunges forward, swinging his nail. The second slash is telegraphed when Sly draws his nail up and behind him. Then he lunges and swings his nail again. The optional third attack is telegraphed when Sly leaps off the ground, his nail already swinging. Let's call this attack Slash Combo. Great Nailsage Sly leaps into the air, coming up short on our position, does a flip, then slams down with his nail. The nail strikes where we were when Sly was preparing to leap. Oftentimes after Sly lands, he follows up with an upward overhead slash. Great Nailsage Sly telegraphs this attack when he lowers himself almost all the way to the floor for a brief moment. Then he leaps high into the air in essentially a straight line. At the apex of his leap, he does a flip and a moment later dives straight down, bringing his nail slamming down. The optional follow-up slash is telegraphed exactly as the second slash in the slash combo, except Sly doesn't move forward. Let's call this attack Nail Slam. Great Nailsage Sly performs the nail art Great Slash. He takes about 3/4 of a second to charge up this attack. He may approach us before charging up. The range on the Great Slash is much longer than Sly's nail. This attack hits for double damage. Great Nailsage Sly telegraphs this attack when charge-up floaty bits begin to collect around him. He then squats down, lifts his head to face us, and draws his nail back. He stays like this while charging. With a flash, the attack occurs. Let's call this attack Great Slash. Great Nailsage Sly performs the nail art Cyclone Slash. He starts by leaping into the air and charging up while he's mid-air. As he spins, he floats to the ground towards us. This attack lasts for about 2 seconds. He takes about 3/4 of a second to charge up this attack. Great Nailsage Sly telegraphs this attack when he lowers himself to the ground. Then he leaps in an arc. As he descends, he begins charging the Cyclone Slash and stops mid-air, in the nail art charging position, to finish charging. With a flash, the attack begins. Sly slowly descends and then bounces off the ground and walls while he spins. Let's call this attack Cyclone Slash. Great Nailsage Sly performs the nail art Dash Slash. He takes about 3/4 of a second to charge up this attack. Sly charges this attack up in a corner of the arena and will leap to that corner. He dashes across about 75% of the arena and the slash covers the rest. This dash occurs in about 1/3 of a second. The range of the slash is much greater than Sly's nail. Great Nailsage Sly telegraphs this attack when he lowers himself to the ground. Then he leaps in an arc towards a corner of the arena. Once he lands, he begins charging, taking up the nail art charging position. Once he's done charging, Sly takes off, dashing across the arena. With a flash, the slash occurs. Let's call this attack dash slash. Great Nailsage Sly dashes around the arena 2 to 5 times before flipping around rapidly with his nail. The end of this attack is a modified version of what we see at the end of a full slash combo. In this version, Sly moves laterally towards us a short distance. The flipping lasts for only half a second, and he prefaces the flipping with a single flip and a pause. After he's done flipping with his nail, Sly flips one more time and then starts the whole process again. This attack occurs only in the second phase. Great Nailsage Sly telegraphs this attack when he drops into his dashing position and rockets to an edge of the arena. If he's going to dash again, he stands and pauses before dashing again. If the nail is coming, he slows and flips in midair. He takes a moment, holding his nail over his shoulder. Then he begins flipping. Let's call this attack Frenzy. The Pantheon of the Sage can have 10 or 9 unique foes. After the first 5 foes, we reach the rest point where we can change our charms, recover our health and soul, and, if we've completed enough bindings, acquire some bonus lifeblood health. Before beginning any Pantheon, I would recommend having the Pure Nail, maximum masks, maximum soul vessels, maximum charm notches, all nail arts, all combat-related movement abilities, especially the Shade Cloak, all empowered spells, and every charm. Each foe is discussed in the order in which we fight them in this Pantheon. The tactics I discuss in my Hive Night guide still work here. This time, there are no bees raining down before the fight starts. Dream Warrior Elder Hu floats around the arena, generally within this area. His floating is erratic, and it is greatly impacted by damage from us. He has 2 attacks, his Ring Slam and Ring Cascade. For the Ring Slam attack, Elder Hu summons several columns of 3 golden rings in midair. He raises them up briefly before slamming them all down together. Elder Hu kind of mimics the movement of the rings throughout this attack. For the Ring Cascade attack, pairs of columns of 3 golden rings appear and slam down in sequence, starting at the edges of the arena and traveling towards the center, with one last slam from a single column of rings. The timing of each set of slams is the same as the Ring Slam. The Ring Cascade is telegraphed when Elder Hu disappears with a big flash. Almost as soon as he's gone, the first columns of golden rings appear. Elder Hu reappears with a little less fanfare shortly after the last column is slammed into the ground. Elder Hu's health is set to 600, no matter the level of our nail. The Shade Cloak is exceptionally helpful against Elder Hu. It's best to jump and attack Elder Hu when it's just him in the sky. Elder Hu will randomly teleport away when struck. Nail extension charms help us reach Elder Hu. There's enough time between ring slams that we can get multiple nail strikes against Elder Hu, but nail arts can be more effective. Shade Soul is a great spell against Elder Hu because a single cast can hit him multiple times. We can heal a single mask, or more if we are lucky, in between ring slam attacks. We can heal 2 or more masks during a ring cascade. A lot of the tactics I discuss in my collector guide still work here. If we're quick, we can get a single spell or nail strike on the collector before they shout. Hey, look at this! We get to just fight God Tamer. No fooling required. We need to do our best to focus all damage on God Tamer's beast. Shade Soul, Descending Dark, and the nail art Cyclone Slash are all very strong options against the beast. Once the beast is down, God Tamer may make one more leap attack, but after that, the fight will be over. The tactics I discuss in my Troop Master Grimm guide are still applicable here. Troop Master Grimm's health is set to his maximum of 1000, irrespective of our nail's level. We can be a little more aggressive in this fight because the rest point is next. Dream Warrior Galeon floats around the entire arena, even brushing the floor at times. His floating pattern is erratic, and it is hardly impacted by damage from us. Galeon has 2 attacks, his Spinning Scythe and Dream Scythes. The Spinning Scythe is Galeon's primary attack, being ever present throughout the fight. The scythe spins rapidly and gently travels around the arena, bouncing off of the walls and floor. It does track us to an extent. The scythe's travel is not affected by us. After the scythe hits the floor 9 times, it reaches the apex of the next bounce arc, slows its spinning, and stops in midair. A little over a second later, Galien stands up and grunts, which signals that the whole process is about to start again. Galien will sometimes finish this standing pose with a bow and sweeping his arms outward. The scythe begins to drop shortly after Galien returns to his neutral pose, and it starts rapidly spinning again shortly after that. In total, the scythe is not spinning rapidly for 2.5 seconds. At the very beginning of the fight, we have about 4 seconds before the scythe gets up to speed. Galien's dream scythes are a little different. The first one appears once Galien is at 60% health, and the second one appears when Galien is at 30% health. Each dream scythe constantly moves and spins rapidly, never stopping or slowing down. They do move slower than the spinning scythe. Each travels independently of each other and the spinning scythe. They bounce off of the ceiling, the walls, and floor. They do not track us, and they are not affected by us. The creation of a dream scythe is telegraphed when Galien begins gathering dream essence into himself. After about 1 second, a dream scythe releases upward to the ceiling. Galien has 650 health regardless of our nail. Saving our shadow dash only for the moments when we are absolutely going to take damage is very helpful. It is best to stay on the ground throughout the fight. Upward slashes, with little hops if necessary, are a great way to get nail damage in. Thanks to Galien not reacting to our damage as much as other Dream Warriors, Abyss Shriek is devastating against him. Shade Soul and a well-timed Descending Dark are okay. It is possible to heal at all phases of this fight. It's best to get ourselves to a place preferably far from Galien, but near where the spinning scythe just hit the floor, and the dream scythes won't be traveling to for a while. We might not always have such an exact spot, but we can still heal a mask safely in many similar scenarios. The tactics I discuss in my Grey Prince Zote guide are still applicable here. It's a little weird because his title is for Zote 10, but he has the attacks, health, and damage of Zote 3. Note that if we never fight Grey Prince Zote in Bretta's basement, we will not fight him here. The tactics I discuss in my Umu guide still work here. Some of them. The tactics to avoid the burst and chase attacks still work. I need to correct my past self. There are set safe spaces during the burst attack. Using spells like Shade Soul and Abyss Shriek to damage vulnerable Umu is still great. Nail arts are still good too. But there's one big, sad change to this Umu fight. No Quirrell. Since there is no Quirrell to render Umu vulnerable, we now get to deal with a new Umu attack, Uma Summon. With this, Umu summons 2 Umas, which slowly rise straight up through the arena. This attack is telegraphed when Umu undulates like they're about to do any other attack, but instead of continuing to shake, Umu shouts, and the lake of acid bubbles up. The first Uma shows up before Umu even begins the shout. The second Uma shows up over 5 seconds later. The Umas spawn at random positions between and including the 2 bottom platforms and can spawn at the same position. It takes an Uma about 20 seconds to leave the arena. During this time, Uma will continue to attack, even with more Umas. We need to make an Uma explode near Umu to render them vulnerable. Heads up, Uma centers explode against platforms despite Umas floating through them. I find using Shade Soul to destroy an Uma to be the safest option because I can be so far away from the resulting explosion, and I can hit an Uma on the opposite side of Umu and usually have the center boomerang back into them reliably. Once Umu is vulnerable, hit them with everything we can, including other Umas if available. We can heal 1 or more masks during the burst attack, and we can heal multiple masks when Umu is summoning Umas. The tactics I discuss in my Hornet 2 guide are still applicable here, but now we have the Shade Cloak, which helps a lot with mitigating Hornet's increased speed, aggression, and her ripostes. After this fight, we have a moment to speak with the Godseeker and rest our hands, because after this, it's time to fight Great Nailsage Sly. There are some charms that I believe that are useful throughout the entire Pantheon. Charms like Fragile/Unbreakable Strength, also known as Strength, Mark of Pride, Nailmaster's Glory, Shaman Stone, Spell Twister, Sprint Master, Hive Blood, and Quick Focus. There's a lot of health to get through in any Pantheon, and strength helps us get through it faster. Most of the foes in this Pantheon do not stay still for long, and or they fly, so increasing our nail strike damage by 50% is very helpful. Mark of Pride helps us against essentially every foe in this Pantheon for much the same reason strength is so helpful. If we only have 2 charm notches available, Long Nail is a viable substitute. Nail Arts are useful against many foes in the Pantheon of the Sage because they let us do massive damage quickly. Nailmaster's Glory lets us execute Nail Arts twice as fast, which means we can have a Nail Art ready as a response to many attacks. Spells are useful against every foe in this Pantheon. Shaman Stone empowers our spells, and Spell Twister allows us to cast more spells per soul gauge. Each charm individually is useful throughout the Pantheon, and the combination of both charms can be devastating. I don't talk about Sprint Master often, but this charm is very helpful in this Pantheon, letting us outrun a lot of foes. For an even bigger boost in running speed, combine this with Dash Master. All Pantheons are an endurance test, and Hive Blood keeps our health recharging without expending soul or needing to stop moving. Quick Focus gives us more opportunities to heal safely. There are other charms that I believe are useful, but not for the entire Pantheon or on their own. Charms like Quick Slash, Fluke Nest, Rubberfly's Elegy, Fury of the Fallen, Sharp Shadow, Shape of Un, and Fragile/Unbreakable Heart, also known as Heart. Quick Slash is a useful charm against several foes in this Pantheon. Quick Slash is most effective if we combine it with Strength, Steady Body, and, for even more aggression, Stalwart Shell. Shade Soul is useful throughout most of the Pantheon, and for the most part, so is Fluke Nest. Fluke Nest provides a huge damage boost to our Shade Soul spell, but its shorter range can be problematic. Grubberfly's Elegy has a lot of utility in this Pantheon, but we need to maintain full health to benefit from it without Fury of the Fallen. Grubberfly's Elegy works best when combined with Quick Slash and Strength. Fury of the Fallen is an interesting choice. It is safest to use when activated just before the resting point, and we've completed at least 8 bindings, so we can get some lifeblood at the rest point because we keep the damage bonus and we can get hit more than once. It's best to combine this with Quick Slash and Strength. Sharp Shadow adds our nail damage to and increases the distance of our Shadow Dash. Sharp Shadow is a good charm against many foes in the Pantheon, and it's very strong against Sly. To increase our Shadow Dash's damage by 50%, equip Dash Master as well. Shape of Un, on its own, is useful in some of this Pantheon. When combined with Quick Focus, we can safely heal 1 or more masks almost whenever we want in this Pantheon. I recommend Heart as the only health boosting charm because there are a lot of fights before the bench and after, and being able to heal is better than having a set amount of health. I've talked a lot about various charms, but none of this helps if we're attempting the charm binding. If we're doing that, then we've got to be more patient since fights will take longer. We can still heal, but only during those no charm moments I discussed earlier. It's also important to use our spells and nail arts because they still do a lot more damage in single uses than a strike from the pure nail. A real great thing about Godmaster is that if we are struggling against any of the enemies in the Pantheon of the Sage, we can practice against them in the Hall of Gods. However, to practice against Great Nailsage Sly in the Hall of Gods, we must reach him in the Pantheon first. Let's talk about some other tactics that are specifically for Great Nailsage Sly. Sly's fight happens in 2 phases. In the first phase, Sly uses every attack except his frenzy. His attack patterns strongly rely on his spacing with us. Sly also closes the distance on us a lot and uses his longer range to his advantage. In this first phase, Sly can be staggered. We'll know Sly is staggered because he gets knocked completely off his feet and his nail flies out of his hands, spinning through the air before landing near him. He remains on the ground for about 2.5 seconds, or until he takes damage, whichever comes first. Sly is staggered after taking 15 hits, or after taking 12 hits within less than 18 seconds. After Great Nailsage Sly has lost about 75% of his health, he gets knocked to the ground, much like he does when staggered. However, this time, his nail flies off screen, and Sly dashes away to retrieve it shortly after. For about 2 seconds, we are all alone. Then Sly's nail falls back to the center of the arena, and shortly after, Sly grabs it in mid-air and shouts. And now it's time for the second phase of the fight. In the second phase of the fight, it's all frenzy all day. Sly just does his frenzy attack until either we are defeated or he is. I tend to fight Sly with my nail, extended with Mark of Pride. I like to get 1 to 2 nail strikes in when Sly finishes his nail slam or a full slash combo. I hang out on the upper corners of the arena during a cyclone slash. I tend to completely avoid Sly during a dash slash. Sometimes I'll cast Shade Soul when I'm safely away from a great slash. I'll try to heal a mask when Sly does the third part of the slash combo, but the timing can be tight. I'll almost always heal when Sly's staggered and during the transition to the second phase. Once we're in the second phase of the fight, I handle Sly's frenzy like this. I hang out around the middle of the arena. I wait for Sly to stop moving, then I shadow dash in the direction Sly was already traveling to avoid the end of frenzy. As soon as my dash is over, I turn around and damage Sly once, usually with my nail, sometimes with Shade Soul. Repeat until Sly is defeated. My tactics are certainly not the fastest, but for me, it's what lets me consistently beat great Nailsage Sly. We need to pay attention to our Shadow Dash cooldown, because Shadow Dashing is going to be very helpful in surviving this fight. This is why I said earlier that Sharp Shadow is very strong against Sly. The increased dash distance is a huge help in safely avoiding a lot of what Sly does. Using Sharp Shadow offensively is a great tactic, and Sharp Shadow's power in the second phase cannot be understated. Spells are a solid option against Sly. I like Shade Soul a lot because I can stay far away from Sly, and it's a fantastic offensive option in the second phase. Descending Dark is another great spell to respond to Sly's attacks with, but there are some timing considerations against some attacks. We've got to be quick about casting it when Sly starts a great slash. It's best to cast it during or after the second slash of a slash combo. It's safest to cast while Sly finishes a Cyclone Slash, and in the second phase, we kind of have to preempt when Sly is going to start flipping. Abyss Shriek can be useful like when Sly is just starting a Cyclone Slash, doing the final attack of a slash combo, or just at the beginning of phase 2. In general, we have to be very aware of our spacing with Sly. His nail's reach is equivalent to the combination of Mark of Pride and Long Nail, so trying to go nail to nail against Sly isn't the safest option. There are special cases I discuss in a little bit, but in general, there are safe moments to use our nail in between Sly's attacks. These moments can last from about half a second to almost 2 seconds, depending on which attacks precede and succeed each other. Great Nailsage Sly is as big as we are, and that means we knock him back a little bit with our nail and spells. Keep this in mind when attacking him multiple times, or use this knowledge to put a little bit of extra distance between you and him. However, he will not be knocked back when executing a dash slash. Sly is such a unique fight because of the way he responds to us. Many other bosses just do their thing, and we have limited influence over what that thing may be. Sly, on the other hand, almost exclusively takes the actions he does because of us. With that in mind, the attack mitigation tactics I'm about to discuss and show are not an exhaustive list, but I hope these tactics, if they don't end up working for you, help inspire something that does. There are several ways to deal with Sly's slash combo, and it's very dependent on where we are in the arena. If we've got space, we can simply walk away from him, and while we're doing that, hit him with quick long-range stuff. If we're in the corner, we can either shadow dash the first slash and then instantly dash again to dodge the second slash, or we can wall jump up and shadow dash through the third attack. We have lots of time, relatively speaking, to damage Sly as he falls from the third attack. The nail slam is a little more straightforward. Dodge the slam, then stay out of Sly's nail range and hit him with long-range stuff. We can dodge the slam with Descending Dark, or dash towards him and cast Abyss Shriek. If we go with either of these options, we may need to dash away to avoid the second slash. We want to be far away from Sly's Great Slash. Its range is very long, and its hitbox is not visually accurate. On the ground, we are safe if the visual of the slash doesn't hit us. We need to be way above Sly or already behind him to avoid the Great Slash in the air. If we stick to the ground to avoid the Great Slash, we can respond with a lot of long-range and close-range stuff. If we take to the air, we can crash down on Sly with Descending Dark. When Sly is charging his Cyclone Slash, we can get a Nail Strike or an Abyss Shriek in. After that though, it's time to get out of the way. We can get to the top corners of the arena and stay there until Sly returns to the ground. Then from our lofty perch, we can either jump away, stay there, or use Descending Dark to return to Earth quickly so we can respond to Sly's next attack. Or we can pogo off of Sly or his nail while he spins, though this is best done when Sly is descending. When Sly leaps into a corner for his Dash Slash, we can cast Shade Soul at him while he charges up. Then when he's attacking, we dodge him however we want. We can follow up with Descending Dark or other quick long-range options. There are some opportunities to heal, even without charms, outside of the phase transition or when Sly is staggered. If we are quick to start, we can heal one mask while Sly performs the final portion of the Slash combo, or if we are out of range of the Nail Slam. If we are struggling to survive Sly, I wholeheartedly recommend the combination of Quick Focus and Shape of Un, which allows us to heal safely more often. For maximum effectiveness, we need to begin healing just as Sly finishes an attack. When we defeat Great Nailsage Sly, he's knocked off his feet and his nail goes careening through the air like he's been staggered. Then he returns to his feet and bows to us. The Pantheon of the Sage is complete. The Hunter's Journal entry for Great Nailsage Sly contains a prayer from the God Seekers talking up Sly and all of his accomplishments, yet still asking for him to reveal the God of Gods. From the Hall of Gods, Great Nailsage Sly is the cunning god of opportunity. I continue to have some fantastic discussions and see comments from many of you noobs about Godhome. One comment in particular by BlueCho4 really resonated with me and is partially backed up by some in-game dialogue from the God Seeker about what the God Tuner is truly doing when we attune to a foe. Godhome is in the Dream Realm. We know this because we use the Dream Nail to enter it, and we do not truly die here. The foes we've killed are their lingering remnants, like snapshots of them. All of the foes that are still alive in Hallownest, their dreaming minds are called to Godhome by the God Tuner. For the final Pantheon bosses, this makes a ton of sense. We're seeing these foes as an amalgamation of their subconscious and conscious mind. However, this idea gets a little fuzzy with foes like Hornet and Grim. Hornet and Grim / Nightmare King Grim are all aware that they are not in Hallownest. Grim outright knows the Godseeker summoned him to Godhome, but Hornet is the real weird one here because she has the same dream dialogue in her Protector and Sentinel fights, which means that her mind has been called to Godhome, but in two different ways? Why does Hornet know to only use one moveset in one Pantheon versus the others? Regardless, I like Sly. I'm cool with this fight, and this idea of what we're fighting being Sly's own current dream self makes a lot of sense. When we meet him in Hallownest, he's a small business owner, having put his life as the Great Nail Sage kind of behind him. He still is the Great Nail Sage, but he finished training his nail masters, Mato, Oro, and Shio, a long time ago, and doesn't seem to be all that interested in fighting anymore. So we're fighting Sly as he once was, a bug who dedicated his life to the nail, and as he perhaps believes he still could be if necessary. Honestly, what would have totally solidified any theories I had on Godhome and would have made me love this fight is if whenever Sly struck us, we'd drop some Geo and Sly would pick it up if we didn't get to it first. I think that would have been a perfect representation of who Sly is, especially if it was somehow presented not as a mugging, but as Sly telling us, "Be careful with your Geo!" That's it for our discussion about the Pantheon of the Sage and Great Nailsage Sly. Thank you for joining me today, noobs. Stay tuned for future Hollow Knight guides. I'd love to hear your thoughts about Sly and this Pantheon in the comments below. I am the Perpetual Noob, and I'll see you all next time. Huge shout out to fellow noob Hypersonic X for his patronage at the Noobness Heard Around the World tier. Thank you so much, Hypersonic X. You are so kind, and I really appreciate it.